Hey, what's up guys, it's TechZoomer talking to you here, and today's video is just a quick one. Today, Apple launched the M2 Pro and M2 Max MacBook Pros together with the M2 Pro and M2 Mac Minis. So we've got tons of new computers with the M2 chip on the Apple lineup. Like, this is a huge drop from Apple. 3 different computers in one sitting is a lot, although it was a press release like we were expecting, because these are a very small pump. So I'm going to react and going to show you what are the differences, the new specifications, all of that in my computer. So if you are excited, don't forget to drop a like down below, subscribe to my channel. Let's get started. So here we are on the Apple's website. As you can see, we have the new MacBook Pros and Mac Mini. These two come by the 24th of January. And these devices are actually pretty cool. So first, let's start with the Mac Mini, because I think this is the most interesting device out of these two. This Mac Mini now comes with more muscle, more hustle, according to Apple. This Mac Mini now is capable of having the M2 and the M2 Pro. So finally, we have an M2 Pro Mac Mini. This is a very exciting prospect because it starts at $599 and it's really cool. Apple did a whole video, whole announcement. I think it would be an October event, but it ended up being just a January release. Other than that, we got the M2 chip and the M2 Pro chip. The M2 chip, it's just like we had on the M2 MacBook Air, goes until 10 cores for the GPU and 8 cores for the CPU. It's up to 24 gigabytes of RAM, 100 gigabytes of memory bandwidth, just like we had on the M2 MacBook Air and M2 MacBook Pro. I expect this M2 chip to perform more like the M2 MacBook Pro other than the M2 MacBook Air, because this is a very well-cooled device, and so I think this M2 chip will be full liberated. No thermal issues acquired. Well, we have the M2 Pro now. The M2 Pro goes up to 12 CPU cores and 19 GPU cores. This is really good. It goes up to 32 gigabytes of RAM and 200 gigabytes of memory bandwidth. So, if you can look at it, I would say that this is a new generation of Mac Mini. The M2 Pro Mac Mini will be, in my opinion, the best Mac Mini to buy. Although, if you want a really cheap Mac Mini, the M2, it's like the best value Mac ever made. So let's go into the real specs of the M2 Mac Mini to understand what you can get, what you can't get, and what are the prices for it. But before we do that, just listen to this. You can edit massive images and 8K ProRes files, according to Apple, only using the M2 Pro. So yeah, I think that here, according to Apple, the M2 Pro Mac Mini is 4.7 times faster than the Intel-based Mac Mini. The M2 Mac Mini is 3.5 times faster. So yeah, all of those are faster than the iMac 27-inch with the i7 inside. Of course, all of this is just Apple's comparisons. So let's go into the orders page and see what we got. Because we got 3 options for the M2 and M2 Pro Mac Minis. First, we got the $599 option. And this option is, I think, in my opinion, the most appealing option. It starts with 8 CPU cores, 10 GPU cores, gigabytes of unified memory, and 256 gigabytes of storage. This is the base model M2 Mac Mini, and I think this is the best deal ever in tech. You know, talking about iPhones, iPads, MacBooks, everything. This is the best deal ever made by some tech company. You can get one of the best computers Apple's ever made for only $600. No display, no keyboard, no mouse. But, I mean, if you have all of those, this is just the best deal in tech ever. Then we have the second option, which is the 8-core CPU, the 10-core GPU, and the 8 GB unified memory with 512 GB of storage. Of course, you can configure that with more. So let's first start configuring the cheapest Mac Mini available. And as you can see, you can go to 24 GB of RAM. You have 16. It's always a $200 jump. Then you have the option to go to 2 TB of storage, just like on the M2 MacBook Air. Costs you $800. Then you have the option to select the 10 GB Ethernet option, and all of these for $1899. This has 24 GB of RAM, 2 TB of storage, 10 GB Internet. I wouldn't choose this Mac Mini. If you are going to buy the M2 Mac Mini, I think that a 16 GB option with probably 1 TB of storage, $1299. $1,300 for 1 TB computer with 16 GB of RAM and an M2 chip, fully fat M2 chip. This is a great option. For the price of the base model M2 MacBook Air, you can get 1 TB of storage and 16 GB of RAM. But I think there's an even better deal within this, because if you have only $600 to spend, the base model computer only starts at $599. And this, guys, this is the best deal in tech ever. This is, in my opinion, the best deal ever made by a tech company. And even myself, that I have a laptop that don't really need a computer, I'm thinking of buying one just because it's so cheap. And with this computer, I can have 2 computers. But let me know in the comments below if you want me to buy this computer to review and to test out and probably keep or return. I don't know. But I simply want to buy one to compare to my M1 Max MacBook Pro that I currently have. But now let's go into the other options because we have more to explore. Now we have the M2 Pro Mac Mini. And the M2 Pro Mac Mini is so exciting. It starts at $1299. So you can get the M2 Pro Mac Mini at $1299 with the binned CPU, with the binned GPU option. The binned GPU option is very interesting. You have the 16 GPU option, you have the 19 CPU option. It's $300 to spend the extra 3 cores. This is a very interesting video to make. So MacStack, keep an eye on it to see if it's really worth it to have the extra GPU cores, but 3 cores is actually a lot of cores. Other than that, you have the 2 options, 16 and 32 gigabytes of RAM, included with the M2 Pro chip, and you have options until 8 terabytes of storage. And you can spec out this Mac Mini, a fully loaded Mac Mini, for $4,500. This I won't recommend, because you have the Mac Studio, which is like $2,000 for an M1 Max, and I think that this M2 Pro, although really good, won't be touching the heels of the M1 Max, but that's something to compare also on other videos. I won't buy this computer, it's simply too expensive. Although I think that the base model version, the 16 gigabytes of RAM, the M2 Pro, and the 512 gigabyte of storage might be the deal to get. $13.99, and if you remove the 10 gigabyte Ethernet, you don't need it, it's $12.99. So wait, $12.99, you can get 512 gigabytes of storage, 16 gigabytes of RAM, and the M2 Pro chip. Hold on, I think that this is the better deal compared to the other M2 Mac Mini that I showed you before. It's about the same price, and you have the M2 Pro, which it will be, for sure, way better and way faster in GPU performance and CPU performance over the M2 regular chip. So I think that this M2 Mac Mini with the M2 Pro is really the option to get. $1,300 for an M2 product with a Pro name on it. I think this is an excellent choice. Apple, good job, amazing computers. M2 for only $600, M2 Pro for only $1,300. In my opinion, these 2 computers are the 2 ones to get. The base models, no extra upgrades, are the best value options on the Mac lineup right now. Let's now analyze the MacBook Pros, which were also supercharged by the M2 Pro and M2 Max chips. These MacBooks are a way smaller upgrade than the M2 Pro and M2 Mac Minis. You might be thinking, why? Did they change the design? No, they didn't. The Mac Mini also didn't change the design. But these computers have only got more power. And the other computers, are contrary to the Mac Mini, now have the option of the M2 Pro. These computers already had the option of the M1 Pro and M1 Max, and those 2 were really fast. Let me see if I can find options to see what are the specifications on these M2 Pro and M2 Max. I know they are really fast. You can see here that they have 12 CPU cores and 19 GPU cores, like I showed you before, the same M2 Pro chip found on the M2 Pro Mac Mini. And we have another one which is 12 CPU cores and 38 GPU cores. Before, it only 32, so we got a bump of 6 GPU cores. And now we have even more RAM. Before it was 64, the cap for the M1 Max, and now it's 96 for the M2 Max. So if you need extra RAM, maybe that's worth it for you. If not, I don't think so. Other than that, let me see if I can find here some type of comparison charts. Yeah, you can see here compared to what? An Intel-based MacBook Pro. Yeah, against the M1 Max, you can see the M1 Max scores even higher than the M2 Pro. So this is the confirmation that the M2 Pro is faster. So this is the confirmation that the M1 Max is faster than the M2 Pro. So before, when I was talking about the M2 Pro Mac Mini against the M1 Max Mac Studio, I think that the M1 Max Mac Studio $2,000 version is still a better option. Although the M1 Pro, as you can see, a little bit behind the M2 Pro, and the M1 Max is a little bit behind the M2 Max. The difference is almost negligible. I would say it's like about 10%, 15% difference. It's not much. If you have an M1 Max MacBook Pro and the M1 Pro MacBook Pro, whenever one of those, I don't think this one is worth it. I think they have increased battery life now. The 14 inches, 18 hours, the 16 inches, 22 hours. It's better than before. Before it was 20 hours and 18. So they only increased it on the 16 inch. Other than that, let's go into the order now page to see how are the prices. They kept it the same. They have the same prices, $2,000, 10 CPU cores, 16 GPU cores, 16 gigabytes of RAM. So this is the bin version, 512 gigabytes of storage. You can probably configure it the same way that it was before. So yeah, $200 for the M2 Pro 19 GPU core. So it's like more expensive, yeah, than $200 for the M2 Max, and then more $200. And the starting price of the M2 Max 14-inch, or at least the base model M2 Max with the 38 GPU cores, is $3,100. It's a lot of money, guys. And with this, you can go to 96 gigabytes of RAM and 8 terabytes of storage. With the 96-watt power adapter, you get $6,300. That's a lot of money for a 14-inch computer, but as you can see here, you get tons of specs. But now, let's check the 16-inch. Let's now reach the 16-inch MacBook Pro, because I think this is my favorite laptop ever on the Mac lineup. I love this computer. I have one, the M1 Max chip. So let's put the M2 Max. You don't have the option of the binned version with the M2 Pro on the 16-inch. You just start with the non-binned version of the M2 Pro. Then, of course, we go into the most expensive chip, of course, then 96 gigabytes of RAM memory and 8 terabytes of storage. And all of this for $6,499. So $200 of a difference. This is found on the MacBook lineup very often. The difference between the 16-inch MacBook Pro and the 14-inch MacBook Pro will always be $200. If you spec out with the same specs, the difference will be $200. It doesn't matter if it's the cheapest model or the most expensive model. If they do have the same specs, the difference will be only $200. That's why, in my opinion, the best option for the MacBook lineup, it's the base model 16-inch. 32 gigabytes of RAM, of course, and 512 gigabytes of storage. It costs you $28.99. It's an expensive computer, I know, but in my opinion, totally worth it. If you don't need 32 gigabytes of unified RAM, because that's a lot, and you just need a very big and fast computer to hold you on, or at least because you like MacBook Pros, and you don't run the wait for the M2 MacBook Air 15-inch, then the 16-inch MacBook Pro base model starts at $24.99. That's a pretty fair price for this computer. It's really good, trust me guys, more than powerful enough. You get 140-watt USB-C, you get 3 Thunderbolt 4 ports, 1 HDMI port, which is now capable of outputting 8K displays. So cool. You have a new SD card slot, headphone jack, Maxi 3 port, 512 gigabytes of storage, the amazing 16-inch display that I have on my M1 Max MacBook Pro, and the Apple M2 Pro chip, with 12 CPU cores, 19 GPU cores, and 16 neural engine cores. So this is, in my opinion, the best value option if you want a big computer. And of course, the complete base model, the 14-inch version, is the best option for the best value on the bank for the MacBook Pros. Although it's worth investigating the difference between the M2 Pro and the M1 Pro, because if you can find the M1 Pro for about $1,500 right now, then that would be a great buy. Other than that, I think these computers are really, really cool. Apple just launched them all, and as you can see here, $19.99 for the base model MacBook Pro 14-inch, only 16 gigabytes of unified RAM, 512 gigabytes of storage, 67-watt USB-C power adapter, and all of the other features found on the bigger model, the 16-inch. This is a great option. Although I wouldn't advise you going for the 14-inch if you're starting to spec out more stuff, because these chips won't probably perform as better on the 16-inch, and so I think it's worth it to go for the extra size on the 16-inch if you are going to spend a little bit more money on performance. The 14-inch is very portable, and the only price justifiable to spend money would be on storage. If you are a very storage heavy guy, then go for 2 terabytes of storage and the complete base model 16-inch MacBook Pro and the complete base model 14-inch MacBook Pro, and for the price of $2,600, that's a very, very good deal. But let me know in the comments below what you think, guys. This is a very complete Apple lineup. Now we have tons of new features. We have the MacBook Pros, we have the Mac Mini, all of those supercharged by the M2 Pro and M2 Max chips. And of course the Mac Mini with the M2 and M2 Pro is, in my opinion, the two base models, the best Macs ever made. So, what you thought? Leave it on the comments down below. For me, these are very small incremental jumps. But the new, cheaper M2 Mac Mini is definitely the show stealer. This computer starts at $599. This is $100 cheaper than the older M1 Mac Mini, and it supports so many new features like 8K displays, supports 3 displays at one time, has the M2 chip, is so much better than the older M1 Mac Mini, and now it's even cheaper. With the new high-end performance of the M2 chip, Like, I've tested this chip. It's very fast, very powerful, almost as powerful as I need. So this M2 Mac Mini will be a banger. I will buy one and I will try one out. I really want to show you guys how good, really, a $599 Apple computer can be in 2023. So if you are excited for that, guys, don't forget to drop a like down below, subscribe to the channel. I want to compare that M2 Mac Mini to my M1 Max MacBook Pro. Other than that, I think it's everything for me. This has been Tech Summer talking to you here.